Everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome all new listeners and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. If you want to know what are three things I wish I knew earlier in my career and how that can impact your clinical practice, you have to tune into this episode. Before I go on to the podcast, what is new in life? The family and I are getting time away, getting sunburned, and enjoying being a family with less screen time. So that's been great. Fitness has been great. Wellness, just the whole routine has been consistent, which is great. It's on, now the next step is how do I maintain that? But other than that, life is great. I'm excited to launch my new Sports PT Academy in the month of July. We have new people coming in, so I'm really excited to see new members, seeing the group grow, and continue to help sports PTs all over the country. So, all right, on to the podcast. What are we talking about today? And why are we talking about three things I wish I knew earlier in my career? All of these stem from conversations that I have with clinicians. And this one actually stems from somebody who is not a clinician, who I continue to work with and I have worked with over the years. And they asked, what are things that you mentor your current, sports PTs on? And what is it that you teach them that you didn't have earlier on? Because that's ultimately what mentorship is, right? You're helping them fast track their career so they don't make the same mistakes that you did, or if they did, they can learn a lot faster. And so I wanted to share the three things that I had to like put a label to my top three, and as to triage them and prioritize them was really tough because there's so many ways you can go. And if I could really hone in on my big three, that's where I got this episode from. So I want to share that with you because at some point in your career, you've either struggled with this or you're now realizing it, or you never even thought of this, and this is going to fast track you and give you a head start. Ultimately, I want to be able to help you in your clinical practice, wherever you are and what type of setting you work in. And everybody's path is a little different in this professional career and in this practice of PT. And ultimately, the foundations of what you do is customer service, right? It is 100% customer service within like rehabilitation and exercise progressions and strength and conditioning. It's all about serving people, and we're here to do that. And as a sports PT, I wish I knew these three things sooner so that I could improve my customer service. I can improve my outcomes. I can improve my relationships with the people I worked with and the patients I served. So let me start off with hitting you in the face with a big one. I think if you're listening to this podcast, I've after talking to listeners and people who continue to follow and listen, we are very similar in that our goals are the same. You maybe your career path was a little different, but your personality is very similar. You're driven. Maybe you're a little type A, maybe you're a little OCD, maybe you like being right, maybe you don't like being wrong. And this one will definitely resonate with you and maybe hit you in the face. So the first one is it doesn't have to be perfect. And this is a tough one to hear for most people, right? Because the reason you're in the position you're in is because you're a little bit of that perfectionist, right? So you're successful and you're doing well because you're type A, right? And you have a little bit of that perfectionism in you. And the thing I can tell you now is I am less of a perfectionist than I've ever been in my career, in my life. And it has helped me skyrocket in so many capacities. And so let me explain how this works. When you're in PT school, your job is to get the best grades possible so it can set you up for success to pass a board exam. And maybe there was a type A in you from the beginning, right? You like being right. You like good grades. You like being the best. And that carried on to PT school, and you did just that, right? So you passed the board exam. You're like, oh my gosh, I did great. So you went from high school to college to PT school and now into clinical practice, and that you're striving for those results. Perfectionism has got you to a certain point, or just trying to be as perfect as possible. And then clinical practice happens. Then life hits you, right? And while you were laser focused in school and everything that you were doing, you didn't have a lot of variables in your way that were compounding the challenges you had. And when you go into clinical practice, now you have, 40-hour work week. You've got patient notes, you've got discharge notes, you've got initial evaluation notes, you've got home exercise programs, you've got different forms you have to fill out. And on top of that, you now want to like be able to exercise and maintain that same lifestyle that you were before. And by the way, you probably met somebody, or you're dating somebody, or you're married, or whatever it is. Maybe you have kids, you have a dog, you have all these other things. And so you have these layers of things being on it. And so in your weekly or your daily schedule, while it was okay to be a perfectionist before, that same time it took you to be a perfectionist is now carrying over to, now I have to take that home. Now I have to work my lunch hours. Now I have to spend it instead of going to the gym. That now interferes. And so what happens is you come into a point, this boiling point, where you find out, well, gosh, I was doing all these things, and now it's interfering with my personal life. Something has to go. And for some of you, it's your gym time. For some of you, it's your lunch hour. For some of you, it's your like time with your dog. For some of you, it's your own like time that you were meditating, whatever it was. And it starts interfering to the point where you just can't handle it anymore. And the thing I've realized over the last few years is my health took a toll. I started gaining weight. I uh, was very heavily focused on being a perfectionist. I wanted the best patient outcomes. I wanted the best programs, and so that bled into my personal life. It bled into time with my spouse, time with my kids, time, at work, and time, for myself. But my patients were happy, right? Like that was the thing. And what I realized, and I spoke about this in my last podcast, like they were happy, but I wasn't like fulfilled anymore. Like I wasn't doing that. And so the biggest thing I started changing was it's not that you don't care. You don't care less. You have to be okay with 80% of whatever your perfectionist mode was, or your version of like just right. And you get to a point where it's called the GE spot, the good enough spot, where it's 80% done. It gets everything accomplished. It could be polished more, but the time it took you to do 80% is going to be the same time it's going to take you to finish that last 20%. So it's actually going to take you double the amount of time to make it 100%. But by getting 80% done, it doesn't have to be perfect. You get enough done. It gets to the point where you actually can move on from your notes, move on from your home programs, move on from the discharge notes, get time with your spouse, get time with the dog, get time for your fitness. And what happens is you can do more. You now have more time. You have that flexibility now. And as a clinician who's been practicing for years and mentoring others, there's so much more clarity where I see it now. And over the last 3 to 4 years, I've exponentially moved on from this, and I've been able to give the 80%, sometimes even 50 and 60, but it's good enough. It allows things to keep going. And now the downside to this is that you have a lot of things that aren't complete. And for some of you, it's a hard feeling for you to know. You're just like, I just want to seal this one. I just want to like just put the final things on this one. And the reality is it doesn't really matter. It's good enough. And you have to hit that GE spot in order for you to be able to enjoy the rest of everything else. And what that does is it gives you perspective, get it done and move on. You can conquer more, you can be more fit, spend more time, spend time on being self first. I mentioned that on my last podcast. And it's going to take you some time to make that transition, but it allows you truly just to enjoy your career path and gain more time for yourself. So that would be the number one thing that I would tell you if you're looking to improve your clinical practice, and you are looking at where can I make the biggest bang for my buck on the one thing I can change to improve like my outcomes, improve who I am, improve my professional growth. It doesn't have to be perfect would be number one. Okay. Number two, I brought this up to somebody recently on my team. This is a good one. Um, simple is not, simple is what people want. And what I mean by that is, PT teaches us to develop this jargon, right? This internal dialogue, this internal vocabulary of medical terms that is only kind of spoken amongst ourselves and health insurance companies, maybe physicians, and a lot internally. And what happens is we use that same jargon, that same vocabulary to convey things to people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is a lot gets lost in translation. And the person who loses the most is the patient. And most importantly, they are the reason that we have jobs. They're the reason why we serve. That's the reason why we enjoy what we do, because we want the outcomes. We want to help people. But you can't help people if they don't understand what you're saying. If you're speaking Spanish or Italian or Chinese, they're not going to understand. And it can be in so many different ways. This goes on to, it doesn't have to be perfect as well, because people appreciate drawing stick figures versus like a complex drawing or a very complex home exercise program. They just need to understand concepts and move on. The minute that you can get more aha moments, or you can get them to understand things faster, you can get them onto the next stage or phase of therapy. And so as you can create more simplicity in your clinical practice, your outcomes will dramatically improve as well. So everything from strength and conditioning programs doesn't have to be complex, doesn't have to have all the colors and the complex cells and the equations, all these. People just want like what works for me right now, and then we can update that later. Versus you might be thinking, well, let's set the next 3 to 6 months and we'll build the whole thing. And they're like, I don't even know if I'm interested. Just let's start simple. Start with the week. Start with the fundamentals. Show them the start of the whole program. Communicate with like easy to interpret language, something a sixth grader can understand. Make the plan so simple. Don't do this. Don't say you're going to do these 3 to 5 exercises 4 to 5 times a day, 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 15 reps. They're like, wait, what did you just say? Oh, you're going to do this once a day, and you're going to do 2 exercises, and you're only going to have to do 10 reps. That's it. They can understand simplicity. And so everything from your home exercise program, your explanation, your communications, what are you currently doing right now that can be improved by making it a little more simple? And when I first started, the thing I would do, I'd build the complex program with too many exercises, with too many sets. And the way I'd communicate is with a lot of 3 to 4s, 5 to 6s, 10 to 12s. And when you do that, what's the difference? Instead of saying 10 to 12, why wouldn't you just say 10? Instead of 2 to 3 times a week, why don't you just say 2 times? What's going to be so dramatic that 2 or 3 is going to get you more than 2? And then if that were the case, then do the 2 or the 3. Choose one. And everything from sending an email, making it super simple, you're explaining to a parent, use 6th grade terminology. How many reps, how many sets, how important is this? Convey and tell them the truth. And PTs make it very complex because we don't see it from the consumer side. We see it from our PT jargon, medically driven, insurance funded, complex setting. And we bring that to somebody so simple who just has pain. And they're like, can somebody just break down what my pain is? Let's just have a new patient who's never been to therapy before, comes in, walks in, and they're like, hey, we're going to have you sign 57 pages of insurance verification. You're going to come on in. Your therapist is going to be right with you. And you introduce yourself like, hi, my name is John. I'm going to be your physical therapist today. So tell me what happened. And then you go into the story and you're like, oh, okay. So your knee collapsed, with the valgus collapse. Okay. And when approximately did that happen? And when was the date? And when was the time? And when does it hurt? And that person's like, I don't even know. It just hurts. And I understand you're trying to get the story, but what you need to do is make sure that this whole process is very simple and seamless so that when somebody comes in, it doesn't feel like a physical therapy visit. It feels like a simple medical visit where they didn't have to think, and all you did was make it an incredible experience. So what you need to do is when they walk in, get the simple story, come in, no use of medial, lateral, anterior, posterior, superior. You don't need to be working on those things. Just say it hurts on the inside of the knee. It hurts when you go up and down stairs. It doesn't. It's not the proximal. It's not the distal. It's the top or the bottom. Start with very, very simple communication, very simple homework, very simple exercise, very simple explanations, very simple plans of care. And so as a clinician, you might not realize how important this is until it's several years down. You start mentoring other students or other clinicians, even if they've been practicing 8 to 10 years, you start to get a little more clear. And so wherever you are on the spectrum of you've been practicing for years and you're still doing this, or you're brand new, or you're about to start, this is a great place to start. So number one, it doesn't have to be perfect. Number two, simple is what people want. They don't want complex. Communicate like a sixth grader. Use stick figures. Translate in the form of stories so people remember. People remember stories so much easier than actual terms or facts. Stories help them convey in a context that can go to a different part of their brain, and it helps to realize that you remember stories. You remember certain places or times associated with songs or other things, and it makes it easier for you to remember that. And your patients do the same thing. So sixth grade terminology, stick figures, and stories. Okay. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Simple is what people want, and authenticity is king. This is number three. Authenticity is king. When you finish PT school, you're so proud. You're so honored to be able to conquer the world and help people in their clinical practice, in your clinical practice, and you finally want to get the thing done that you've always wanted to, which is to help people. And what happens is you come from this medical background, and you come from a professional standpoint. You want to, you're the new physical therapist on staff, and you want to show and prove to people that you have good clinical experience, and that you're not having imposter syndrome like you might be displaying internally. And the thing I can tell you, really good new and established clinicians do very, very well. The most successful ones are the ones who are more authentic. And what I mean by that is you don't want to have to be a stiff medical provider. You don't have to be so dry and stiff and use a lot of jargon and prove to people. And what you really want to do is genuinely help people, and they have to be able to feel that. And you can put things in context of, listen, if you were my family, if you were my friend, that helps them understand just a little deeper of what that means to you. Like, you're genuinely trying to help. And if you're over here saying, I've seen 1,000 of these and this is what you're gonna have to do, that doesn't put it in context of how this is going to help them. That's a fact. That's true. That might be true that this is the only way, but they don't understand that, and it's not their fault. And you being authentic and being genuine and saying, listen, I understand that you want to play this weekend, or I understand that you want to accelerate your rehab. What this is going to do is really put you in a very risky situation, and I wouldn't want to do that to you. If you were my friend, family, father, any whatever it is, sibling, I would tell you honestly, I would back off and hold. You're more than willing to do whatever you want, but I'm telling you, as a medical provider, as a healthcare professional, my job is to do no harm, and I don't want to put you at risk. And for that reason, I don't want to let you play this weekend. That is something different versus it's just what it is. Those are just the rules. For the same reason that you appreciate that with your employer, with your coworkers, with your partner, you appreciate authenticity and the explanation that's coming and resonating with them. And when you're authentic, it will improve your outcomes more than you know. Why? Because people resonate with that. You're genuine, and you gain patience for life, meaning the thing that they'll say is, you're different. You're not like the other physical therapists. You actually care. And for that reason, they're more likely to come back to you for the next ache and pain that they have, or their family member. They're going to refer people to you. And you might say, well, how do you balance that with being a professional, right? You have to still be professional, approach people with professionalism, and that's not a problem. But there's always a balance between being this stiff medical provider in a white coat, white coat syndrome, and this one who is too authentic and too empathetic and isn't professional, and and empathizes and doesn't really drive or push the person. One's more passive, one was a little bit more firm, and somewhere in the middle is this great blend of a clinician that can help people, and that when people feel that they want that and they can't find that inside media, they can't find that inside an internet search, they can't find that on YouTube, because you can't feel that. And when people are in front of you, and that number one, it doesn't have to be perfect, you get enough done, they appreciate how efficient you are, and your explanation and the way you communicate is simple and that's not complex, they appreciate that. But the icing on the cake is somebody who says and looks them in the eye and is absolutely genuine with them and says, here's the best route for you based on your scenario. After putting everything together, this is what I would do for you. And when you put those things together, you have people who are tied to you, they appreciate you, and they will stay with you for as long as they have aches and pains, which if they're human and they enjoy exercising, they're going to have them forever. So ultimately, people want people who are going to empathize with their situation and be genuine in their care and their responses. Now, you might be a good clinician, but good clinician doesn't drive a good relationship. It just drives good outcomes. And a good relationship with good skills, oh, that is a beautiful harmony that creates a professional who just stands out from everybody else. So if you're going to be a outstanding physical therapist, and you asked me, hey, Chris, what are the 3 things that you wish you would have done better early in your career so that way you can get started faster? What are the 3 things that you share with physical therapists who are inside your mentorship groups, who are inside your programs? What are the 3 things? And those 3 things doesn't have to be perfect. Simple is better than complex, and authenticity is king. If you've ever been to any of my courses, that should resonate with you in some form of capacity. It doesn't even matter what the skill set was, whether it was my management of the barbell athlete, or my Kickstarter, or my strength and conditioning summit, or my acute injury accelerator. It doesn't matter. Those 3 fundamentals are inside every single course, because it is the framework that allows you to be successful, and it puts you in a position where you can create good relationships with the people you want to help. Because ultimately, we all got in this profession because we wanted to help people, but we can't help people with just skills. You still have to be able to maintain relationships and rapport and understand people's physical stress, but also their mental, and being able to put those things together creates a beautiful harmony that as a clinician is unstoppable. So there you have it. There's my 3 things I wish I knew earlier in my career. And if you're somebody who, enjoys learning, the fundamentals and everything behind the scenes of what it takes to become a professional, and, you've done the work on the hard skills, and now you're looking at how to put it all together, your best bet is to join my Sports PT Academy. It's a monthly virtual group style mentorship, and it's all online. And the truth of the matter is, I built this over the last 3 years because I wanted to be able to help sports PTs all over the globe with the things that they're most frustrated with. And I understand that the biggest challenge that clinicians have is that they struggle with not just the hard skills, it's about putting it together. It's not just a tough case. It's, what would I do in this scenario? What am I missing? Now, well, even though you did the mobilization, you made it very complex. That person didn't understand what they needed to do. You said 3 to 5 sets. You did 10 to 15 reps. You told them 2 to 3 times a week. You told them this. And what happened was the hard skill was good, but what you didn't do was the outcome wasn't sustained across the week because they didn't do their portion of it. Well, did they not do their portion because they weren't compliant? Well, why weren't they compliant? Was it a portion of that was your ability to communicate and convey the importance, or were you not authentic? They didn't see the value. There's so many layers to why people don't get outcomes. And so when you're looking at, well, I want to be able to put it all together so that way I can ensure all of my outcomes are maximized. If you're looking for that type of a setting, the academy is perfect for you. Whether you're a new grad or you're an established clinician, we all face the same challenges. And after practicing and being in professional sports and traveling the world and seeing clinicians of all different capacities and capabilities, my goal is to be able to help people create a framework, regardless of your setting, whether you're cash-based or direct access or traditional orthopedic setting, a hospital or peds, whatever it is that you do and you enjoy working with athletes or active individuals, and you're sick and tired of the same old stuff and you want something different and you find yourself stuck, this is the next place for you. So I'm excited to see you inside the academy. If you have any questions about that, feel free to send me an email, drchris@drchrisgarcia.com. I'll get on a phone call and I'll explain and see if this is right for your time in your career. All right. I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care, everyone.